I'd like to call Zane Shepherd with All State Insurance Cares to do a pledge and prayer for us program. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Will you join me first in the pledge? I pledge to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, I ask you to pray with me. Dear Lord, thank you for this time that we can be together and to honor these incredible young people that have achieved so much or the potential. We thank you for this great city that we live in and work in, and all the new things that you've blessed us with. Freedom to come together like this. Thank you for this luncheon and joy together.
Stand up, stand up, stand up, stand up. Yes, thank you. Stand up. Now I want you to put both hands to your mouth. And I'm going to ask you to yell one word. I'm going to give you a hint. It has 5 letters. One word. What is the glue that holds everything together? That without it, everything falls apart. In 3, 2, 1. I was going for a proxy. Sit down. I had a whole presentation about epoxy. I was going to tell you how to mix epoxy, how to use epoxy, how not to use epoxy, from my personal experience. But we're going to go with your word too. We're going to go with trust. You know, 30 years ago, I was an engineer. This is what my computer screen would look like. And if you told me 30 years later, I would be standing here in front of you talking about trust, I would think that you're crazy. Here I am. So for the graduating students today, you don't know what your future will hold. And I think that it would be very helpful if I talk about trust, if I can actually tell you why. Why am I talking why is trust so important to me? And I want to take you back to October of 2008. Some of you may remember the Great Recession. The stock market has crashed. The housing market has crashed. I work for Texas Instruments, and Texas Instruments had just announced that they're going to lay off about 1,400 people. They just didn't say who. So you can imagine what it felt like working for Texas Instruments at that time. But on top of everything, I had one more thing on my mind. See, I had to come up with a topic for my doctoral dissertation. And I was on the phone with my mentor, Corey. And there are a couple of things you need to know, those of you who have or are going to go on a doctoral journey. The last step of the doctoral journey is really just the dissertation, defending the dissertation. And they have a special name for people who barely pass the requirements for defending the dissertation. You know what name they give those people who barely pass those requirements? Doctor, very good. The second thing that you're going to hear is that a good dissertation is a done dissertation. So you'll forgive me, but I was aiming pretty low. And I came up with a topic for the dissertation, and Corey here shut it down. And I came up with a second topic, and he shut it down. And we kept doing this for a while, and I kept coming up with topics, and he would shoot them down. Until at some point he asked me a question that ended up being one of the most pivotal questions in my life. He asked me, Yoram, what pisses you off? And I wanted to say, well, you are trying to come up with a topic here and you don't let me, but the words that came out of my mouth instead were, why are people so much more creative when they work in startups than when they work in large, mature companies? See, I started startups, I sold startups, I even bought one startup. But at that time, I was working for Texas Instruments, a company that with 35,000 employees was anything but a startup. And I could feel the difference. It was quiet on the other side of the line, and Cody said, I think we have a topic. So I started my research. I researched for 2 years. I interviewed people in the US, in Canada, China, Europe, and even Israel. And I came up with the answer. I wrote chapters 1, 2, 3 of the dissertation, submitted it to the committee approved it. I wrote chapter number 4, the results, I submitted it to the committee approved it. I wrote chapter number 5, the conclusions. And I called Corey Sunday night, and I said, Corey, I'm just done. I just finished writing chapter 5. He said, email it to me. I said, give me just 1 more week. You know, clean it up. He said, fine, send it to me next week. Unfortunately, Corey went to sleep Monday night and did not wake up Tuesday morning. And I dedicated that dissertation to me. I did graduate. Okay, this is where you go, better. This is Shira, my daughter. She was 9 years old at the time. And this is my graduation ceremony. And we came home, and Shira had a friend over for a play date, and her friend asked her, Shira, where have you been? And Shira said, we just came back from Minneapolis where my father just got his doctoral degree. And her friend said, really, so your daddy's a doctor? And Shira thought about this for a second and said, yeah, but not the useful kind. And then I started being asked by people, so what is the answer? Why are people so much more creative when they work in startups than when they work for large mature companies? And I realized, first of all, it was pretty annoying because I spent 2 years, 348 pages, and you're looking for a 1-sentence answer, but then I realized that I can actually answer it with a single word, with 1 word. Innovation culture. Or 2 words if you put the space in between where you should. And then I wrote another book called Culture Starts With You, Not Your Boss. And I was just about meeting with another company and trying to tell them about the model for innovation culture in their company. And I realized that they didn't have any of the green things, any of the green stuff And so the book, Culture Starts With You, was with the editors when I realized that I need to add a chapter. And I added an epilogue, a 6-page chapter. And for the first time, I talked about building trust. So if you ever get Culture Starts With You, Not Your Boss, this would be the only chapter where you can find typos and grammatical errors, because it never went to the editor. This was the first time that I started building a mathematical model of how trust gets built. And that model has evolved to where it is today. You're laughing, but that really is my model, which we're not going to go through, but you can find it in the book of trust. But today, what I wanted to tell you is what is going to be your most important quality. And to do that, I did a survey. And I asked people, what is the most important quality for you in other people? And I gave them 6 examples. Your boss, your employees, your peers, a salesperson trying to sell you something, your government representative, and your spouse. What is the most important quality for you in those? I got the answers. I created a survey based on those answers with 5 options. In number 5, with 0.83%, 3 out of 363 people said that the number 1 quality for them in other people is good looks. I know. But number 1, with 61.2%, more than the next 4 combined, was trustworthiness. Trustworthiness was the most important quality for them in other people. More than intelligence, more than the willingness to work hard, more than the willingness to take risks, and thankfully, more than good looks. Number 1 was trustworthiness. And one day I was going to a restaurant, to an Einstein Brothers, to get okay, we're doing a little better. And I saw these 2 guys, they're Israelis, sitting next to the window. And they were starting to talk, and they started to argue, and they started raising their voices, and they started pretty much yelling at each other, and they used their outside voices. And then people around them started moving away, giving them some kind of a demilitarized zone. And I understood from what they were talking that none of that was personal. They were not being emotional. They were passionate. But they were still friends. And I thought, this is how you hold an argument. This is how you have disagreement. And I did another survey. And I tried asking people, what are your attitudes towards disagreeing with another person? Well, quite a few people said that disagreement is unproductive. Some of them said they don't feel comfortable disagreeing, and others said we don't want to disagree at all. We try to avoid disagreement as much as possible. But I had one more factor, and that factor was, do you have a high level of trust or a low level of trust? And I didn't just ask that, it was more complex than that. But what I found was that in a low trust environment, you are 10 times more likely to try and avoid disagreement, which is the foundation for innovation and new ideas. I also found that there are 3 elements for disagreement, to be able to hold disagreement, constructive disagreement. 1 is your willingness to be vulnerable with one another, to ask stupid questions, to suggest stupid ideas. The second is your willingness to give direct, unsweetened, unfiltered feedback. And the third one is your receptivity to that kind of feedback. But once again, what I found was that in a high-trust environment, people are 240% more likely to be willing to be vulnerable, 106% more likely or willing to give feedback, unfiltered feedback, and 76% more receptive to that kind of feedback. Ladies and gentlemen, trust is what takes a group of creative, productive, effective individuals and turn them into creative, effective, and productive teams. You may have already read that in the invitation for today, but the two most important answers to those two questions will have the biggest impact on your professional or personal success or failure. Can I trust you? And can you trust me? I know I was supposed to talk about two things, but I'm going to give you all 8 laws of trust today. So law number 1 is trust is continuous. Now this is funny because whenever I get to talk about this, I tell the audience that I often forget my wallet at home. How many of you forget your wallet at home every now and then? Don't worry. So unfortunately today, I actually did. I forgot my wallet at home. Halfway through it, I'm thinking, I'm either going to be here without a wallet or we're going to skip the audio-visual check. So the AV check is very important, so I'm here without a wallet. Seriously. Who here is willing to lend me $20 because I do need to get gas and drive back home? Who is willing to lend me $20? And I promise I'm going to put $20 in an envelope and send it back to you. Who's willing to lend me $20? I mean, you can give me your own $20, don't let it with him. What if I ask for $100? How many of you are willing to lend me $100? Not so much. Okay, one. Zane, thank you. Drew, can you give me his email address? So I did that in front of an audience of 500 people. And I asked $20. Pretty much everybody raised their hands. I asked about $100, well maybe half. $1,000, there is a lady in the corner. She raises her hand. $2,000, she raises her hand. And I thought, man, whatever I do before I go home, I need to take her name and tell her. Because if I ever am stuck and I need $2,000, that's going to be home. See, trust is continuous. You trusted me with $20, not with $100, not with $1,000. Law number 2, trust is contextual. And so one day I was trying to explain this concept to a person in Houston, and maybe to use an analogy, I asked him, what do you drive? And he said, oh, I'm driving a Mercedes E350. I just got it 2 months ago. He actually talked like this when he talked about his car. That was perfect. I asked him, do you mind lending me the key? Give me the key because I want to drive a car just like this and I just want to take it on a bike. Mind giving me your key? And he goes, no! I don't know you. I don't know what you're going to do with my car and I don't know what car you're leaving behind here. So I asked him, how about if we change the context? You just broke your leg. Hypothetically, not you. You just broke your leg and you're going to be taken to a hospital. And this parking lot out here is not where you want to leave your Mercedes E350. Brand new. You want me to take the keys and drive it back to your home? And he said, sure. So I asked, what changed? I mean, a minute ago you wouldn't let me. I'm the same person. You don't know me for more than a minute before I asked you before. The context has changed. Trust is contextual. Trust is also relative. So we got students here. How many of you are using Rate My Professors to sign? Well, you're just graduating now, so you haven't signed into classes. Who knows what Rate My Professors is? You know what Rate My Professors? So I didn't know that. And both my girls are in college. Well, actually, one has just graduated 2 weeks ago. But what I realized is they go online to a website called Rate My Professors. And in Rate My Professors, they can find anonymous ratings of professors in different universities. And I thought, that's brilliant. But wait, I teach at SMU. Do I have a page on Rate My Professors? So we went and we checked, and sure enough, I do. And here's what I found there. I am awesome. Professor Solomon is awesome. I really enjoyed his class and his lectures. If you're interested in starting a business, this class is a great thing. This is great, right? You think I'm showing you here this, especially the graduating students, you think I'm showing this just to get you to take my class? Well, actually, yes. Or you can when you're a graduate student, it's a graduate course. But get ready for some vulnerability. The next review that I saw was this one. Starts with AW, but it doesn't say awesome anymore. This course is mostly about his own accomplishments, rather than a broader view of peer review techniques. His attitude was condescending, arrogant, but he's a music grader. As long as we have the important things there. Why am I showing you this? Here's an interesting thing. Those are anonymous. I don't know who the students are. What I do know is that they took the same class, in the same classroom, at the same time. They could have sat next to each other. How could they have such different attitudes towards the same person? Because trust is relative. You're not going to get the same level of trust from different people. Trust is asymmetrical. I may trust you more than you trust me. And if you don't see that context, let me ask you something. How important is it that the pilot of the airplane you're flying on trusts you to land the plane as much as you trust them to do that? Number 5, trust is transferable. Question for especially the younger people here in the audience today. Did your parents tell you when you were young to never enter a car with a stranger? Yes? And do you? You do? You know why? Because you trust 973 people who gave a 5-star review to this driver. And Uber, with all of their issues, you still trust them to have done some level of pre-qualification of their drivers. And trust is transferable. The trust that Uber and the previous 973 drivers had in that driver transfers to you because you trust them. Number 6, trust is reciprocal. Anybody with kids here? Those who did not raise their hands, raise your hand if you know what kids look like. If you don't, this is what they look like. Yes, so my daughter Maya, when Maya was a year old, she realized that beyond crawling, she can lift herself up. Now, I'm going to need you to help me here, so get ready to speak. She realized she can lift herself up. And the next thing she realized after she can lift herself up is that she can walk. And after she realized she can walk and not hold anything, the next thing she tried is running. Exactly. The first time she tried running, she failed. Exactly. The first thing that she did when she failed was no, she didn't. She didn't run. You know what she did? She turned around and looked at me. And in every family, we have 2 roles. One of them, not necessarily the wife, is the one that's going to go. And when you do that, she cries because apparently something terrible had just happened. And the other person, not necessarily the husband, is the one who's going to go, get up, keep going. And when you do that, she gets up and she's like, this hurts, and there's something red here that's drooping, and apparently it's not a big deal because they don't think it's a big deal, and she gets up and she keeps going. Trust works that way too. We think always of, if someone is trustworthy, then we're going to trust them, right? It works the other way around too. If you show someone that you trust them, not only that you trust them, but you show them that you trust them, they will behave in a trustworthy way to justify that trust that you show them that you have in them. Number 7, trust is dynamic. Trust is not static. It does not stay at the same level all the time. Trust between interactions with clients, it's a self-defense mechanism because we haven't seen someone in a long time. We're just coming out of a pandemic. You may have seen the other person over Zoom, but some people you haven't seen in a long time. Your level of trust in them is going to be slightly less than it was before, because there have been some time in the past. Trust changes the most during interactions. When you interact with a person, this is when you build or destroy trust. Law number 8, trust is two-sided. See, trust is the product of my own trustability, my willingness to trust other people. You know, here is some of our experiences. Some of us had pretty bad experiences that cause us not to trust anyone, or to trust a lot less than other people in the same context. It's a product of my own trustability and your trustworthiness, and there is absolutely or almost nothing that you can do about the former, my willingness to trust, and everything you can do about the latter. So I gave you 8 laws of trust. Trust is continuous, it is contextual, it is relative, asymmetrical, transferable, reciprocal, dynamic, and two-sided. To make it easy for you to remember those 8 laws, I created an acronym for you, and the acronym goes TUKRATORBET. That would help you remember the 8 laws. I owe you the end of the stories. So these are my 2 girls. That was better. And I want to tell you about Maya. Maya barely picked herself up from the floor and started running. And the first time she started running, she fell. She's like Southwest Airlines, 20% on the ground, the rest of the time she's up in the air. Maya actually won the regional gymnastics gold medal for floor team in 7 states, and had the highest score, gymnastics score, in 2017 across all disciplines, and graduated from TWU 2 weeks ago. Shira has graduated too. Some of you may know that or remember that, but between 2015, I got elected in 2015 for the Plano ISD's Plano Independent School District Board of Trustees. I served there for 4 years until 2019, and I had the honor of giving my daughter, Shira, her graduation diploma. Shira had just finished 2 years in Common College and is about to start UNT. Anybody here went or is going to TW or UNT? No, we're all going last. You are? Yeah, very good. So Shira is going to UNT, and actually just yesterday she came back. She's also working in a place called Kidzania, and she came back as the employee of the month. This little girl that thought that I was a doctor, but not the useful kind. I want to wrap it up with a message. Your most important quality is trustworthiness. And I want to adapt what John F. Kennedy said in his inauguration address. Ask not what others must do to earn your trust. Ask what you can do to earn theirs. Thank you.
2021 Scholarship Foundation Awards Ceremony and Nomination. I'm very honored to be here representing the Chamber of Commerce and in alignment with the Murphy Chamber of Commerce Scholarship Foundation led by Steve Dahl. And Steve is the wealth advisor with Dahl Financial. So if you don't have your money in a place that's safe yet and secure, I will tell you firsthand knowledge that Steve has done some fantastic things with the savings of the Chamber of Commerce Business Fund. Thank you, Steve, for continuing to be a steward of our money as well as everyone else's out there. So look Steve up if you were looking to get a second set of eyes on your finances to make sure that you are aligned so you can retire or have the ability to retire. That's the key part there. Freedom, right? Now, I will go on to say one thing to our seniors. I just want to stress one very important point that if you get this point, this is the secret. This is the secret, right? Try it. You ready for it? What you think about is what you will get, what you focus on, and what you will receive. To be a steward of time and a steward of your money. Do not let distractions get in your way. Right now is the most critical time of your life where you have the most energy. You have the most time, but you have the least amount of money. So most of you are going to go out there and either pursue a higher education or get started with business right away. Either way, we're proud of you. We're proud of you for making this far. I look back, and when I graduated, 9/11 just happened. This is in 2001. And what an attack on America. We felt, as a country, so united. Yet it was an interesting time to be graduating from high school, going into the real world. After an event like that happened on our soil. And now, after 3 years forward, here we are. What you've just happened, our seniors, this has been devastating for so many people, including our teenagers, you that are trying to cultivate and show that life is so good. So coming up next is Steve Dahl. Cannot preach about this gentleman enough. He has helped the Chamber of Commerce and our personal funds, our savings position. He has seen exponential growth during Steve's tenure watching our funds. So I encourage you, this is a time where you need to be in the money game. If you don't have money, go to somebody that does. If you do not actively have a financial advisor, or worse off, if you have an advisor that is not active in your portfolio, you need to meet with Steve right now. Steve, I hope you don't mind pleasure, sir. It's been a delight getting to know Steve on a much more personal level, on a business level. His business acumen is sharp. We're blessed to be around and surrounded by such experts. So look around when you get going to that station. Shake a hand. If you haven't met somebody, go and introduce yourself. You are going to find wealth and knowledge. Everybody's a mountain, right? Everybody has this mountain of knowledge. And you just have to tap in and ask some questions. Best of luck in life. Use us as a resource in the chamber. If there's a job that you're looking for, reach out to us. We might be able to give you some advice on how to help get you there. Use us for the experience that we bring to the kingdom. And you prosper everything you do, and peace and happiness for everyone. You guys.
Full disclosure, I had no idea that he was doing this. I swear I didn't pay attention. Got to get really close to this here. Can you guys hear me okay without the microphone? Yeah. I think that's better. I with enough emphasis, what a great class of seniors we got this year. We had over 50 applications for our scholarships, and the ones that are here are the community prop. So congratulations to all of them. I'll tell you a little bit about each one of them. I think you have a flyer there, so please feel free to take one home and read about them. You guys have some scholarships, absolutely good coverage for your friends, family, grandparents, and I want to first of all thank the city of Murphy. The city of Murphy round of applause. The city of Murphy is very instrumental in helping us with our scholarship foundation. Our biggest fundraiser every year is pumpkin shopping. It's held at Mays Days. If you've never done it, if you've never seen it, it's awesome. It's a huge slingshot that put a pumpkin in it about the size of a bottle, along with a little smaller, and just put it in the pond over there in Central Park. It's a lot of fun. The city supports that 100%, helps us set it up, gives us the space, advertises it, provides pumpkins. We're a beneficiary of public proceeds, we choose to do everything else. So the city has really helped us to nurture and grow this. So thank you so much to the city of Murphy. And also, for what they do for the chamber as a whole. We are. This is all because of the city. So our partnership with them is fabulous. And we love to live in a city that cares so much about the community and the kids. The other people that I would like to recognize are people who are on the board of directors for the chambership. So, looking around the room, we start with Rick and Jean. John Ashbrook, who has been the Scholarship Foundation from the beginning. He's basically the founder. Was part of the chamber, we split it off so we could grow it. And without John's leadership, we would have never been where we are today. Zane Smith. John Smith. Zane Shepard with Allstate. Zane, if you guys don't know Zane. He's been on the board with me for a number of years. He started off out John quite a while ago. Karen, I can't tell you how much Karen does for us. She's fabulous. And there's Sherry's not here. Sherry Searcy and John Smith are two of the board members who are working with me today. I know why John was here and had nothing to do with what he's done, and he's always been with us. So, thank you to all of you. We get a lot of donations from the chamber members, not only making donations or renewing their membership, but the little things on the table, which I am so happy that this is our first live event back. To be able to I think this is better way to kick off than that a lot of elections. So, without further ado, the quality of the applications that we received this year was phenomenal. As always, the choice is difficult. If you're not familiar with the process, you receive the applications, you look at them blind, and then criteria. Our criteria is academics, their activities, their work experience, an essay, or meeting. So really, each one of those is 40 points. You grade, we have 3 people grade the applications, trying to grow this. We were blessed this year because our biggest fundraiser was pumpkin jumping. Obviously, we didn't have that, but it's wonderful to go and from into the local last year. But we have done a good job and we continue to do this as we can. Our beloved serve, so there's something like that happens, you're not saying about the scholarships. So wonderfully, we've done that with both of our reserves that went. Hopefully in the near future, these keep going like they are, we can increase out of the number of scholarships. So all the scholarships are $1,500 each. So we want to do more, but we have to be responsible for what we're doing. So now we're talking about the real reason we're here, and these great young adults that we have. So there is no particular order as to what this is. They're all theirs, they're the top 6. I don't even know, the order is really, that's not a description. So I'm going to start off with sending back all of your scholarship. And this is the first year that we've had the scholarships, or people who get scholarship, and that really helped us in meeting our goals and meeting our guidance. So Julie Hodge, Julie, just kind of wave to everybody. This is Julie, big things here, hand up there. Julie, and this is off the applications. I have not actually had a chance to do this together. I apologize. I've had some issues. So if I'm incorrect in any of these details, please fill me in. Julie is going to Texas Tech. She's going to study architecture. Julie is the president of the student body. She's in theater. And she was in the National Honor Society for the National Technical Report Against Arts. And she worked with a student do all of this because she taught us. So, Julie, can you come up here? You want to put on your mask? I'm not really, I don't want to do this. This is the U.S. House of Representatives certificate of congressional recognition presented to Julie Hodges, recipient of the 2021 American Chamber of Commerce Scholarship Fund, signed by Van Taylor. So all of our recipients will receive one of these. Next is the Golf Financial Scholarship. And this goes to Nicholas Harrison. Nicholas, hey, there's Nicholas back here. Nicholas goes by Nick. So Nick also went to Wiley. Where are you going to go to school this year, Nick?
Rice.
Rice, so you have decided. Okay, that's an application because undecided. So Rice, wow, that's awesome. And his plan is to study business and technical theater. Nick again was busy. NHS, he was the drum major, he was the student body historian, key club, and this really stood out. I think this is so cool. He and his brother started what they call birthday brothers. So if you've ever seen little signs in the yard that say happy birthday to you or whatever, this is the man who did that. So, that's pretty cool. You were a young entrepreneur that went out and started that business, and congratulations. Great job. Nick says the same thing, so I'm not going to read that. made a donation to the Scholarship Foundation in honor of his mother, who was a teacher. And this goes.
This picture.
plays volleyball, was district honorable mention. She played club volleyball and was a captain for 2 seasons. She was also here in EHS. FCU, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and on that she was on the leadership team. Again, she found time. So Abby, fantastic job. Wonderful. Cameron's going to be going to UTB to study psychology. He was in the National Honor Society, JUROTC, Young Men's Service League, where he was president, jazz band, and report. So, a lot of applause for Cameron. And these are our 2021 Scholarship Foundation winners. They've all been these three rounds.
Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay. Sorry about that. I was hoping maybe like Steve that would away from my door. Okay. Well, I'm Julie Richards, Executive Director for the Local Chamber, and it's wonderful to see everyone in person. I'm almost a bit emotional. I can't believe it's been over 8 years since we've all been like this at a luncheon, but I'm very happy we're at a point where we can hold this together today. Once again, congratulations to the Scholarship Foundation recipients. It's wonderful to have you here this year. Thank you, Steve, for your presentation as well. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge city employees and state officials that are here with us today. First, I'd like to introduce Jennifer Berthia, our Mayor Pro Tem, the City of Murphy. And Jennifer also serves as a chamber ambassador as well, so we appreciate what you did to the chamber. We also have Mike Castro, City Manager, with us here today. We have Susie Quinn, our City Secretary. And we also have Taylor Prentice, our IT Director. I'd also like to give the opportunity for anyone in the room that is not a scholarship recipient or a family, anyone here, maybe a chamber member who has not yet been to a luncheon, maybe it's your first time here. Just stand, raise your hand, and tell us your business. Anyone else here today attending a luncheon for the first time? Okay, well, it's great to have you here. All right, so some upcoming events with the Chamber. So every Thursday, the Chamber holds our weekly networking event, and we are glad to be able to be, this week will be our second event offering a hybrid option. So we will be offering the in-person option here at the Murphy Community Center, right over across the hall in the Homer Adams Room, 8 a.m. And for anyone still wanting to attend virtual, we will have that available as well. And that's every Thursday morning, 8 to 9 a.m. We have several ribbon cuttings coming up here. this week. Busy week. So on Thursday, we have high code at 5 p.m. at their location located in Wiley, just across from the Target. Friday, May 21st, we have Edward Jones with drama at noon at his Dallas office location. And then on Saturday, May 22nd, we have an open house for coaching by Nadia Tosh at her Plano location. She will have an open house between 11 and 1, and we will do ribbon cutting at noon. So if any of you are available and able to join us, we would love to have you. And if you forgot what I just said, it will be posted on the Ribbon Chamber website. And also, if you are a member that has not yet booked your ribbon cutting, please give the office a call. We want to get you up to 21. I'd also like to announce a new program that we're going to be offering. We are finalizing all the details, but in July 8th and 9th, we are launching our Young Entrepreneur Leadership Camp. And it's going to offer 2 half-day sessions. Registration and details will be available soon. It's designed for children between the ages of 9 and 14 and helps them identify their strengths and how to build confidence and leadership skills using their strengths. And so if you're interested, or you know anyone that has a child that might be interested in this wonderful opportunity, please give us a call or shoot me an email. I can write your name down if you're interested. That way when we register, you can make sure you're on the list. But again, we are targeting for the dates of July 8th and 9th, 2 half-day sessions, and we will be offering lunch as well. Very excited to announce the details of the program. And last but not least, we are planning our next program for sometime in August, and we will share those details as well. And I do want to be honored to give special thanks to our sponsors today. So we have Farmers Insurance Karen Weeks, we have the Silver Learning Center of Murphy, we have Adult Financials, Adult, Allstate Insurance, and Shepherd. We really appreciate your support, and also the Settle Law Firm here in Murphy. Appreciate your support, and also special thanks to Bob Tillman, who's been a photographer today to take pictures. Thank you so much. All right, so now we have a few fun things. I want everyone to go and look at the back of your chair. If you have a red sticker, we have a surprise for you. If you have a red sticker, then the bag in the middle of the table is yours. And there are gifts in each bag. Now, some of the bag, I will say, don't wait till you get home to look at the bag, because there might be a voucher in there that you have to redeem or you need today for your gift. Some of you have a voucher, some of you actually just have everything you need in that bag. Okay, and so also we have 2 raffle items today. We have a very, very special red and white umbrella. And it really brought a smile on my face when John Latchwood brought that in today, because John retired, I think it's been over a year now. But every luncheon, you could always depend on that wonderful umbrella. And sometimes you had to walk out of the luncheon using the umbrella. So John, thank you. And so for the raffle, we didn't do business card draw, touchless, we didn't have anything there. But I will throw out a trivia question for you. Does anyone know, and whoever comes the closest will win it, what year did the Scholarship Foundation form? Does anyone know the year? If you don't know, maybe just throw out a guess. You might be right. Anyone else? Okay, Janice, you're the closest. It was 2006. We also have one other prize. We have a Logio's gift card, compliments of Farmers Insurance. And this question is, if anyone knows, which year was the Chamber of Commerce in Murphy formed?
3.
It's 2003. Have a great lunch at Logio's. So I believe that concludes our program for today. Congratulations to all of you seniors on the next step in your journey. Thank you so much for sharing this luncheon with us. Welcome.